Hello everyone. Anybody joining me on a Sunday? Hello Pushpa. How are you? So what do we have here? So yesterday's episode, right? We figured out how to execute stuff. That was like an achievement. Let's open up Hazelnode. And what we achieved yesterday was basically when we do execute, it actually executes the nodes, right? So that was the thing we did. And today we'll continue. Hey Alberto. Peace. So what I want to do today is to clean up some code and work on something very interesting that came to my mind yesterday. So the first goal here with the workflow is to replace the webhook feature of framework. If you see, with just two nodes, we should be able to do that. One is the document event node and one is the HTTP request node, right? But before that, I have this notes here that has a node called webhook. So it listens to webhooks. So the framework doesn't have this feature. So this will be novel. And so what will happen is it will whenever you put that node, right, it will give you a random URL, right, which can then be given to a Stripe or Razorpay, and they will call that endpoint, and that node will receive that data and pass it to the future node. So let's build that, and for that we are going to use a framework feature. So advanced feature that will let us so let's open up Node so we can note down stuff. So something like episode 34 slash, right, Hazelnode webhooks, and then some random hash, right? So this will be the URL. And how do you get this random URL to listen, right? We can of course have this slash API slash method, right, and create some method in our, but I don't want that. I want my own URL generated that I can listen to, right? So maybe in some other workflow they create one more webhook and it gets a different ID, right? So it is interesting how we can achieve this in framework, right? So somehow we have to have our own path resolver in the sense. So if we dig deeper, right, in framework, how it resolves path, and we'll start at the very base, which is basically app.py file. Here you will see if the path starts with slash API, frappe.api.handle, right? If it starts with slash backups, right, it will download the backup. If it starts with slash private files, it will download the private file. Otherwise, if it is get, head, or post, it will go to get response, right? In there, we have this path resolver class, right? Ankush talked about this in the episode we did collab. So here it will just try to resolve the path and render it, right? So here we have something called so it tries to do, like, if it is a 404 then it returns 404, and if it's a redirect it will resolve the redirect. If there is a hook called website path resolver, right, and that for handler in the website path resolver endpoint will be whatever what do you say, so it getter is basically it takes the dotted path and then it calls it with the path, right? So we can have our own path resolver. That is what we want, right? We want to resolve these paths on our own, handle this on in the custom app, right? So we can use this hook. It is calling it from website path resolver. Very advanced and neat feature, I guess. It will save us a lot of time. So I'm going to go into hooks.py file. That's why I was excited for today's episode. It is very ad hoc. I didn't plan, but I wanted to try this stuff out. So I'll come here. Let's do it at the top. I don't want to scroll. Resolver, and it is supposed to be it's looping over it, so it's supposed to be a list. There might be some documentation, but code is the best documentation, right? Recently Jannat posted a post on LinkedIn which is viral now, but yeah, nice insights. So it does this and it tries to get, so let's see if it is used somewhere. Nope. And that path resolver, I don't know, should be a dotted path to somewhere. Frappe.getHooks, this equal to get URL. Oh, probably it overrides the whole path resolver thing. So maybe this is not something we want. Yeah, so maybe we want something else. Oh, custom renderers. Get custom page renderers. Okay, there is a page renderer hook, right? So not this, we want this, right? And get the attribute, and that is basically a dotted path to a class. That should be a dotted path to a class. And that should have two attributes, can render and render, right? So cool. Maybe a builder is using this as well to render the pages. Custom page renderer, as you can see. I am reading the tests to figure out the documentation. Custom page test website. Let's search for this class. Yeah. So we will also need a custom page renderer, and we can see if we can render it and then render, right? This is exactly what we want. So instead of render, we will listen to the webhook there. Just that's it. So let's create one custom class that will handle this routes, right? Anything that starts with this thing. Let's come back. Page renderer, where should I create it? Hazelnode. Let's call this Hazel webhook handler .py. Good name or not? Yeah, Hazel webhook handler is fine. And here I will say Hazel webhook handler pass. So this should have an init, can render and render. Let's copy this. We'll add our own, don't worry. We'll modify this to convert to spaces format. Okay. So here we want to say if self dot path, so path is a string, status code is an optional, or we can say from typing import optional int. Cool. I don't want build response, it will just return response. If you recall, we had this, we used this in the HTMX video if you have viewed that. From work Zook. Okay, let's go to Frappe and find this build response thing. It just uses this response. Where does it import it from? Yeah, this workzook.wrappers response. We want to make our own response, right? I will return a response. Hello, right? Let's format imports. Cool, and then we need to give this path in the hooks. Still something left, so we want dot starts with, right? We will be able to handle can render will be called by the framework to check if your handler can handle this endpoint, right? And if it can, it returns true, otherwise it returns false, and Frappe will ask some other handlers. So it has a list of handlers, right? It will first check custom renderers by any custom apps, then it will check status page, then web form, then document page, then template page, then list page, then print page. So it will check. If it is not found by any of them, then it will return the 404 page, right? Framework. Super cool. So if it starts with /Hazel webhooks, right? Then we will, hey Kevin, how are you? We'll return true. So let's make this cleaner. Okay, because starts with, we already returns a boolean, right? So it will return true if it starts with Hazel webhooks. And let's also make sure this Hazelnode webhooks. Okay, Hazelnode webhooks. Okay, if it starts with this, then we'll be able to handle it, right? And then we'll say handler from Hazelnode. Cool. So we'll test it out, don't worry. And then we'll go to page renderer and give the path Hazelnode dot Hazel webhook handler, Hazel webhook handler dot Hazel webhook handler. Cool. We'll need to restart bench. Let's exit, or clear cache will also do. I'll restart the bench. Let's go back. Let's go in the browser and test it out if our handler is working or not. This is an advanced feature. This is cool. You can write your own API layer on top of it. Hazelnode.localhost port 8000. Hazelnode webhooks / whatever this not found. Okay, shouldn't have happened. Because if we check this handler, if self.path starts with Hazelnode webhooks, which is exactly this. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's print path self.path. Let's see what path it is getting and if it is getting it to handle it or not. And I will refresh the page. Go back. Okay, it's not getting the slash. No, this is not the dev container. This is like actual bench running on Mac. So we just have to remove this slash and it should start working. Yeah, handler from Hazelnode. So any path that is this pattern will be handled by our handler, which is this. Cool. This is cool. This is cool. This is cool. Page renderer feature, super cool. Whoever did this in framework, kudos. Hey Blender forever. How are you? So yeah, we use this, and now Hazelnode. So how do we create like webhooks? People will come and say any random IDs here, right? Any random stuff. So we'll need a doc type that keep tracks of the webhooks we have active in the system, right? So let's go back and create a doc type for it. Hey, it's all around. It's all around. So what I want is Hazelnode /app doc type list. I want to create a new doc type in Hazelnode module and call it Hazel webhook. Yeah, Hazel webhook is fine. Webhook listener, yeah. Hazel webhook listener. Okay, I'm fine with the name. Let's add a few fields. So this will be naming rule will be that hash is fine. I'm fine with it, right? But let's give it so every webhook listener, right? So how do I connect the workflow and the listener? That's the question now, right? Surely I will have a link field, but to what? We can link to a workflow for now. What workflow this is linked to? So what workflow this will trigger, right? Let's take a quick break. Oh, Hazel workflow. Hazel workflow. Cool. And this should be mandatory. What else? What other information we might need? I'll be right back. Cool. So where were we? Yeah, so we can create listeners from here, and usually this will happen automatically. If the user adds a listener to their node, this should be automatically created. So let's call it send HTTP request, hit save. right? So whenever someone makes a request to slash webhook slash whatever the name of this is, right? Slash Hazelnode webhooks slash this, right? This workflow will be triggered. Cool. So we are triggering workflows with HTTP requests now. But yeah, so this will get all the data, so on and so forth, whatever came in with the request, right? As the context. So if we want to check whether we will be able to handle this or not, so I think this is the path we will get. So this will be self.path. And we need to, in can render itself, we have to check this, right? So there should be two conditions. So if does not start with this, straight away we can say no, we can't render, right? The other task is to split it into two parts, right? First part, and the second part is basically ID. Let's call it ID. So I want to split self.path.split at slash. So this will split at this, right? And give me the last of it, which is -1. Self is not defined. What? Convert to tabs. Yep, that was the issue. So we'll get this part, right? Or we can say webhook ID. And now we can say frappe.db.exists. Let's import Frappe. Format imports. Yeah. If there is a listener with this ID, let's copy the doc type name, Hazel webhook listener, with this webhook ID, right? If it exists, right, then we'll be able to handle it. That's it. At that point in time, we don't need the status code. We need something, webhook ID equal to none. So we don't have to recalculate it. So we can say self.webhook ID. Here also we can say self.webhook ID. And when we render, right, let's print it. Handler from Hazelnode, self.webhook ID. Okay. And now let's go back to the browser. Let's make a request. Hey Sajad, how are you? I am great, alhamdulillah. Yeah, watching. Long time. So are you planning to come to Frappe build next month? Hazelnode 8000 / Hazel webhooks. Okay, so yeah, now you can see it throws 404 because this is very random ID. But if I give it a proper ID to listen to, then it should handle it. Let's give it a proper ID. Yup, it works. I don't know, very few tickets were available last I knew. But yeah, check them out if it is still available. There were very few tickets to begin with because it's a small venue. It's not that big as what we do Frappeverse in. But I think 200 is the max capacity. But as you can see now, we are able to listen to webhooks, and here is where we have to do all the magic. Cool. So what do we do now? So what was my plan there when I was thinking about this? Doc name for the webhook listener, that's fine. Find the workflow for that listener and execute. Okay, let's do that. So I want to say frappe.getDoc. So first of all, I need to get the workflow. Linked workflow equal to frappe.db.getValue Hazel webhook listener self.workflow ID, and I want the workflow, right? And then we just do frappe.getDoc Hazel workflow linked workflow, call execute on it, right? And we can give it context if you remember, right? So we should probably give it the request body, etc. Probably. But yeah, we can do that later once we know that it is executing. So let's do it now. Let's check our node. Is it still printing? Yeah, it prints the response and everything. Cool. Let's go and make a request to this. Let's go to bench. Response Pong. Powerful. So now, like when we implement the UI, right? Now it's matter of UI. We just need to create this listener, and then the user will get this URL that is generated, right? And then they can copy it and paste it in their payment processor or whatever, and it will listen to the stuff. So how about we do this in the handler? We properly build some response, right? So we have to handle it properly. But yeah, let's commit. Something is working at least. So as you can see, we wrote a class. This was all because framework made it easy. Otherwise, it would have been harder. Yeah. Oh, wait. Why is this? Shoot. Why am I logged in, not logged in as administrator? Because custom was checked and the files didn't get generated. Now, yeah, they are here. Finally. As you can see, nice. So let's commit feet before we take a break. Custom webhook listener. This is a cool feature, by the way. We'll implement it. We'll polish it a bit more so it passes the context data. Cool. I'll be right back in 10 to 15 minutes. back. Hey, Dark Horse 256. Got to meet you in Nairobi. Finally catching this live. Awesome. So yeah, where were we before we went to the break? We basically got this one doc type with one field, and also we implemented this handler, which is a custom page renderer. It basically will handle any path that starts with Hazelnode underscore webhooks. That's what we did. And before we elaborate on this, maybe I can do it behind the scene as well. I just want to pass the context. So if we go to hazelworkflow.py, as you can see, there is a context we can provide. And in that context, I want it to contain, right? So context, we can pass the context here. I want it to contain everything related to this request, right? The headers, the body, everything. So the next node can basically use it to figure out whatever they want, right? But before that, I want to do one code related thing. So we implemented this, right? HTTP request node, and in hazelnode.py file, we are calling this execute method basically, right? So we are assuming that execute will be there, and we'll integrate more essential nodes in this app. So I want to create an abstract base class. So an abstract base class in Python. This module provides the infrastructure for abstract base classes. So this is not Python specific, right? It's a concept in object-oriented programming. Abstract based classes implement by providing a way to define interfaces than other. So it will not actually be a class, but an abstract class, right? You can directly initialize an abstract based class, but when a class inherits from an abstract base class, it has to do some stuff, right? Like, I can show you an example. I haven't used abstract base class in some time now. So we have to just import from ABC, import ABC. Let's go back to our code. Let's create a new file somewhere in the nodes folder. In the init, I will import this, and then you can create a class, right? A Python class. I will call it node, and it will be an abstract base class. So all the nodes that we create will inherit from this. So they have to contain the execute method, right? So here is where we will tell that whoever inherits from node will have to implement an execute method. So let's read more. You can read about abstract base classes. So today I was thinking that now we have the essential series, right? We have JavaScript, Python, and SQL essentials. Why not do an intermediate series for all the three, and then an advanced for all the three in 2024? That can be a thing. So in advanced, we can cover decorators, data classes, so on and so forth, advanced data structures, collections module. In intermediate, we can cover classes, because I think we left at functions in the Python essentials episode. Yeah, here you say at abstract method. Let's see. Yeah, a decorator indicating abstract method. Using the decorators requires that, or is derived from a class that has a meta class derived from it cannot be initialized unless all its abstract methods and properties are overridden, right? It cannot be initiated. So if you say that a node has abstract, we have to import it abstract. Okay, no, how do we? Abstract method, yeah, abstract method def execute self what all event params and context. can just do dot dot dot, right? Because this is not the implementation. Now when we go to HTTP node, let's import from dot import node format imports, and now we will say that HTTP request node inherits from this node class that we implemented, right? And if it doesn't, say let's rename this to ABC. Now we try to initialize this node, right? Bench console, let's open bench console. Let's try to execute. Oh, it executes, but it doesn't print this stuff. Maybe it catches the error. One more thing we have to fix. We have to log the trace back somewhere. So for now, let's go back to Hazel workflow and let's throw or raise. Can't initiate abstract base class without an execute method, right? So this is the useful feature. Now, and there is one more useful feature which we'll talk about. So let's go back for now, and I will bring back rename this back to this. Cool. This is cool. One more benefit we'll get is that we can now annotate this with node from nodes import from Hazelnode dot nodes import node, right? And I have annotated with this with node, so hopefully we'll get, come on, wait, execute, right? So we also get autocomplete. Because any node will need this, and even if like this is just type annotation, right? So this is not a type check. So even if third party apps bring their node, they won't be able to inherit from our node, right? That's fine because it's just a type check. Cool, let's commit this Hazelnode. So we refactor the code actually. Refactor, or it's a feature. Refactor, use abstract base class for node. Cool, we implemented that as well. It's much nicer now. So anybody who wants to know, I can share this documentation with them. I can share this file with them that your class, if you are implementing a custom node, should comply to this thing. That's it. This also acts as a documentation. Similar to virtual doc type, we have a virtual doc type documentation that is mostly a Python file. Cool. Let's get back to the webhook handler. So here I will add a breakpoint. So to inspect how and where can we get the data. No, I have to exit from here and we'll go back, make a request to this endpoint and bench change. Breakpoint doesn't work. Yeah, breakpoint. So now we can see frappe dot form dict. What does it contain? It's empty. Frappe dot request. It's a request object. Frappe dot request. So we can pass in the request object as is in the context, right? But how about logging it? We want to log it. We can't log an object. So we have to keep the log that, okay, this was the webhook received. Debugging purposes or whatever. I'm live, right? Since nobody is putting anything in the chat. Yeah, frappe dot request dot body has no how do I get headers? Come on. Frappe dot request. This is basically a work zook request, right? Work zoog request and response objects. Okay, cool. Request dot args. Okay, let's check what it is. Frappe dot request dot args. Okay, it's an immutable multi-dict. That's fine. How do I get headers? Yeah, here is the headers. So we can say while we are forming the context, right? Let's form the context here. This will be a frappe dot underscore dict, and this will have request headers will be frappe dot request dot headers, right? Don't worry, we'll log it somewhere as well that we received a webhook. The headers received, the request object itself, request object frappe dot request, right? I want the request body as well. What was the data that came in? Get data. This reads the buffered in one. By default this is cached, but the behavior can change. And there is get JSON and ticket JSON is called return. By default this raises, okay, is JSON is a thing. So we have to check that. How do we check it? Okay, if frappe dot request dot is JSON, will that work? Hey Lois, how is the bro doing? Oh, is JSON is a property, it's not a class. Check if mime time indicates JSON type. Okay, so if it is JSON, let's create a request data variable, and if it is JSON, we'll say request data equal to frappe dot request dot we are typing frappe dot request so many times. Request object, right? We can refer it by that name. Again, request object, request object, request object. Yeah, so request object dot get JSON, right? If it is a JSON, then that will be that. Otherwise, request data will be request object dot get data, right? And then we will just pass this as the context. Request data is request data. Cool. Let's remove the breakpoint. So what I want to do is actually dump this somewhere in a doc type, right? As a log that, okay, we received the webhook. Or let's just print for now. For now, we'll print context. And I will open up Bruno and make a request to this endpoint. Cool. Hazelnode API, new request. Name is Hazel webhook. http://hazelnode.localhost 8000/hazelnode webhook. Let's copy stuff from here. This is the listener name. Handler return this. What does it print? Okay, instead of doing that, right, why don't we return the whole context? Oh, type error. Yeah, because makes sense, because we have taken over Frappe, so it doesn't parse it automatically. That's fine, we can check bench console. Yeah, so it has the request object, it has headers, that is cool, and it executed and got the request pong, so everything is working at the base level. Now we just need to store this somewhere, this log, right? So we can do this. Let's create a new doc type. Doc type. There should be a song on doc type. Hazel webhook log. Hazelnode. We can ask ChatGPT to write it. So this should be settings. database engine. Where is that field? I want to change the engine for this. I want to use InnoDB. Because even if InnoDB is not an asset, I think like it doesn't rely on transactions. If you create a log, it will be there whether the request fails or not. Let's check Frappe how it does it. So we have to check the JSON files. We check error log, right? Error log dot JSON. Oh, so we wanted the reverse, not InnoDB but myASM. So you can read more about it. So we can copy this whole key from here and go to Hazel webhook log.json and change this engine to myASM. And we need to run migrate bench dash dash side Hazelnode migrate. Cool. And now here we'll create a new frappe.getDoc. Doc type will be, so I'm logging the data somewhere that okay, we received this webhook, I have logged the data here, so for further inspection or whatever. So we want Hazel webhook log. I want to log the headers, or we can log context itself. That will be frappe dot as JSON context. Hopefully this doesn't fail. Dot insert ignore permissions equal to true. So we need to add a context field to that doc type, and that should be that. Code context, this will be JSON. I will make it mandatory, or no, it's fine, not mandatory. We can say to save some space, auto increment. Cool. And we don't want people to go and create this. Allow create, user cannot create, we need to check that checkbox. User cannot create, user cannot search, can search, maybe that's fine. But yeah, the doc types are increasing, the application is taking shape. Okay, let's do it now. Okay, let's go back, let's check the logs. No, okay. What went wrong? Because it returned the correct response, it shouldn't have. It shouldn't have returned. So if there is any issue, it should have returned something else. Because if it tried to make this as JSON, reflect object wasn't able to. Let's do one thing. We'll just copy those two pieces. Right, now we'll try again. Let's see. Okay, we are still not getting any logs. Isn't this working? How do we check now? Let's add a breakpoint here. It should return a 500 error. Oh, breakpoint is there, right? Context. Okay, the log got created this time with an ID of 3. What does that mean? So as you can see, it has the request headers. There was no request data. That is fine. But what? Why? Why was it not created the first time? Or the second time? Or even now? What if we send a post request with some JSON body? Paid amount. Okay, the log got created. What's happening? Randomly creates and does not create. As you can see, the request data is here. The headers are here. What? This is weird. First, second didn't get created. Third got created. Fourth again did not get created. Fifth got created. Let's try one more time. Yeah, now it is getting created for some reason. As you can see, it got the request data as well as the headers. Cool. And if you send multi-part form data, AB name is John. $45. Oh, see, it doesn't parse multi-part form data. Let's handle that. Wow, what is this? So it's not JSON. It's actually a list. Let's console. And that's why you don't work in both JS and Python at the same time. Let's also print frappe.form underscore dict. As you can see, that is binary, and form dict is something that we can rely on. So also let's print the headers, because we want the user to be at ease, right? They should be able to get the form data as JSON, which Frappe does in this case. So why not we send form dict frappe.form dict as well, right? So how do we process this data? I've done it somewhere. Which app, I don't know. I was listening to webhooks from Stripe. Probably Press. Let's see Press. Let's get this over with. Press, okay, press is not installed, press is outside the bench because reasons. And I implemented somewhere webhook Razorpay webhook handler. Frappe.formDict. Okay, request.getData. This was the payload. Payload.decode. Okay. So we have to decode it. So request data will be .decode. Okay, after decoding we give it there. Let's make a request. Let's check the logs now. Oh, it's still weird. Oh, wait. We need to copy this 3. That's why you don't copy stuff. Copy paste harms. Let's make a request. Let's go back. Let's see this. As you can see, formDict is this. Again, this didn't get decoded as much as I imagined, but something happened. So at least it is not a byte stream now. It's a string, but still not decoded. There is our data somewhere in between. So we'll see how to convert that. But now we have formDict and headers and everything. Let's get this working as well. So how does Frappe convert stuff into formDict? Let's open up Frappe one more time. Okay, or we can check here. Oh, here it is using formDict. Probably the user who wants it can look at formDict anyways, right? So I will leave it at that because we are giving them everything. So this will be the context they will get. They will get the formDict so they can handle webhooks. They will get the request data and they will get the headers if they want to do some kind of authentication, right? So let's send a custom header and try it out. Bruno headers. Webhook token. Later on we will also implement auth token. Let's send it. Let's go back, take a look at the logs. Header. Here is the header. Oh, and we need to link this log somehow to the actual webhook. Edit doc type. I will make this read only. I will add a link field. Who was the listener, right? The actual webhook for which this log is there. So this will link to webhook Hazel webhook listener. And this will be mandatory. And now when we are creating this, we can say webhook will be self.webhook id. Cool. Let's try again. Let's go back. As you can see, this is now read only. But why am I not getting the request headers? Like this custom header that I sent. Was it sent or not? It was sent. 200, okay. But for some reason we are not able to get it. Or am I not seeing it correctly? No. Custom headers work Zug request object. Hmm. Why are we not receiving that thing? Let's do one thing. Let's add a breakpoint here. Debug. That's the only thing we can do right now. Frappe dot request dot headers. So this doesn't have that. Frappe dot request dot environ. Anything in particular? Can't seem to see anything that can be useful. Wait, let's open up press again. Okay, let's continue the breakpoint for now. Verify webhook signature. So there is this frappe.get request header. Okay, let's begin to Frappe now. Okay, this was not that easy, but if it is easy, then it is not worth doing, maybe. It was easy. Easy things are not worth doing. So things that are hard, like that are worth doing, are hard. Something like that. But yeah, that's the philosophy. Let's figure it out today anyways. I'm running a lot. Let's search for this in a Python file, of course. Yeah, here you go. So it says request.headers.get. Okay, the same thing. Okay, let's try this. Let's do just one more breakpoint. Too many complications. Okay, breakpoint is already here. Now I send this from Bruno, right? Let's copy and check. Okay, too many tabs. Let's make a request. Go back here. Frappe dot get request header, right? Frappe dot get request header. Come on. Come on. What's happening? Frappe dot get request header. I think it is none. So even Frappe can't find this header. Why? Is Bruno not sending this headers? Am I on the latest Bruno? Because it looks like it is sending. As you can see, ABC got here. Okay, ABDC test got here. Huh. This one didn't. This one did. Okay. Probably we should let's see if it logs it. Yeah, as you can see, ABC test, right? So we sent two headers. This one got sent, this one did not. Why? Okay, I'm gonna maybe this webhook token is webhook token header not shown in request headers. It turns out that Apache this ignores headers with underscore. What? Ha! Now it comes. So, this was completely random and weird. Huh. So maybe next time don't include underscore in your header. What? This was like wasted so much time on debugging this, right? It was some peculiar web HTTP thing. And now if we see, we have the request headers being passed correctly. Even like, let's make this read only. Okay. So now clearly you can listen to webhooks. We are also logging the webhooks, right? And we are passing them as context to the next node, or the, yeah, whatever node. Razorpay, let's close this as well. Okay, this was interesting. Let's remove the breakpoint. So now everything seems to work, except what? Yeah, let's remove the print as well. And there is some repetition. Let's clean that up before we go. So I think the repetition is these three things. So I should create a serializable context. What, any better name? Just tell me. So this is serializable context that we can JSON serialize. And I will dump that here, as well as we can directly say serializable context. Let's format document. So there is no repetition now. This is serializable context. Get doc, and execute the workflow. Execute workflow. So this function became quite long. So let's break it down into multiple functions. Get, request, data, self, pass. One function for that. Create webhook, Hazel webhook log. So each function does something of its own, right? Not multiple things. What else? Def, trigger, execute workflow with context, self pass. Yeah, let's start moving code. So this part, right? So we can say self dot request object equal to frappe dot request, because the request has already come in, so this will be populated. And then we can say we can copy this part from here, we can paste it here. Return request data. This will be self dot request object, self dot request object, self dot request object. Now you can just say request data self dot get request data. Clean. Let's do some more. Or even better, can we directly get the context? Get def get serializable serializable context self, and then we can copy a lot of this. We don't even need request object now. So serializable context, and this will be self dot cool, and this just returns this, and we can here we can say serializable context equal to self dot get serializable context, and then this will be self dot request object, right? Already much cleaner, but let's clean it more. This thing can go here, create Hazel log with serializable context, right? So we can come here and say self dot create log with the serializable context. Okay, execute workflow. So this thing can be inside this, and linked workflow. As you can see how much cleaner this is going to become in a second, because finding the workflow and executing is just this, and we need context, right? With context, that means this whole thing, this context can come here, and this just needs serializable context. So we will say, where were we? Yeah, self dot execute workflow with context. This also takes serializable context. Okay, we went from so many lines to just 3 lines, each function doing its own thing. So this gets the serializable context, creates a webhook log, readable, right? Readable as well, much more readable than what we had previously. Then the third line is self.execute workflow with context, right? So it will just execute the workflow by forming the context, and hopefully everything still works. Let's try it out. We'll make a request, the pong, and let's check the logs, and everything works as expected. Awesome. Cool, let's commit. After this, we need to start writing tests, by the way. So each node should be tested thoroughly once we get the UI working as well. Wait, log webhook and pass context to. So this should have been 2 separate commits, but fine. Log webhook and pass context to workflow. Request context, it will be request context to web workflow. And we are done for today. By the way, did you see this tweet? Is it visible on the screen? Come on. Yeah, 100,000 views. Build with Hussain. Thank you, everyone. And we started on like 10 months ago. Okay, if you are still with me, thanks for remaining till the end. We did some hardcore stuff. Refactoring this, that, abstract base classes, website renderers. We started with a simple hook here, webhook handler, and that's it, I guess. Hopefully you learned something new. I learned quite a few things from here today. But yeah, it was interesting. If we check the beauty of this class now, it has init, render, can render, get serializable context, this, that, and this is our class that we wrote today. And it also creates webhooks and triggers workflows. So we have our first implemented trigger workflow. So we thought we'll implement cron, but it struck to me that okay, Frappe doesn't have it. And what you need to create a listener is to create just a doc type that we created today, right? If you want a new listener, just create which workflow do you want it to do that. And probably we should add a validation that if one listener is listening to the workflow, otherwise it will be havoc. Because we are doing single trigger, right? So let's add a validation before we go. We might forget it. So this should be in the listener class. If a listener already exists, def validate self, or we'll do it later. Self dot, let's do it very fast. Validate only unique workflow. Let's add validate unique workflow self if frappe dot db dot exists. Let's uncomment frappe. Let's see how fast we can do that. Hazel webhook listener, which has the workflow same as this guy's workflow, right? Frappe dot throw listener for this workflow already exists. Let's try that. Listener for this webflow already exists. Let's format document, format imports, fix, validate unique workflow listener. Tada! We are done for today. Goodbye, everyone. See you later. Tomorrow, maybe? Let's see.